The VeLvEtEEn Rabbit. There once was a velveteen rabbit, and in the beginning he was really splendid. He was fat and bunchy, as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown and white. He had real thread whiskers, and his ears were lined with pink satin. On Christmas morning, when he sat wedged on top of the boy's stocking with a sprig of holly between his paws, the effect was charming. There were other things in the stocking: nuts, oranges, a toy engine, and chocolate almonds, and a clockwork mouse. But the rabbit was quite the best of all. For at least 2 hours, the boy loved him. Then his aunts and uncles came to dinner, and there was a great rustling of tissue paper and unwrapping of parcels, and in the excitement of looking at all the new presents, the VeLvEtEEn Rabbit was forgotten. For a long time he lived in the toy cupboard or on the nursery floor, and no one thought very much about him. He was naturally shy and only made of velveteen. Some of the more expensive toys quite snubbed him. The mechanical toys were very superior and looked down upon everyone else. They were full of modern ideas and pretended that they were real. The model boat, who had lived through 2 seasons and lost most of his paint, caught the tone from them and never missed an opportunity referring to his rigging in technical terms. The rabbit could not claim to be a model of anything, for he didn't know that real rabbits existed. He thought they were full of sawdust like him, quite out of date, and should never be mentioned in a room of modern circles. Even Timothy, the jointed wood lion, who was made by the disabled soldiers and should have been of broader views, put on airs and pretended he was connected with the government. Between them all, the poor little rabbit was made to feel himself very insignificant and commonplace. The only person who was kind to him at all was the skin horse. The skin horse had lived longer than anyone else, and he was so old that his brown coat was lopped off. It was bald in patches and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string beads for necklaces. He was wise, for he had not seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and by and by break their mainsprings and pass away. So he knew that they were only toys and would never turn into anything else. For nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old and wise and are experienced like the skin horse understand all about it. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day, when they were lying on side by side near the nursery fender, before Nana came in to tidy the room. "Does it mean having to have things buzz inside of you and stick out handle on your side?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the skin horse. "It's the thing that happens to you when a child loves you for a long time, not just to play with, but really loves you. And then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the skin horse. "You become. It takes a long time, and that's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair is lopped off, and your eyes drop out, and you lose your joints and are very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you're real, You can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." "I suppose you're real," said the rabbit, and then he wished he had not said it, for he thought the skin horse might be sensitive. But the skin horse only smiled. "The boy's uncle made me real," he said. "That was great many years ago. But once you're real, you cannot become unreal again. It lasts for always." The rabbit sighed. He thought it would be a long time before the magic, which is called real magic, happened to him. He longed to become real, to know what it felt like, and yet the idea of growing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers was rather sad. He wished that he could become it without going through all these uncomfortable things or them happening to him. There was a person called Nana who ruled the nursery. Sometimes she took no notice of the playthings lying about, and sometimes, for no reason whatsoever, she went around swooping like a great wind and hustled them all away into cupboards. She called the tidying up, and the playthings, they all hated it, especially the tin ones. The rabbit didn't mind so much, for wherever he was thrown, he came down soft. One evening, when the boy was going to bed, he couldn't find his china dog that he slept with. Nana was in a hurry, and it was too much trouble to hunt for china dogs at bedtime. So she simply looked about her, and seeing the toy cupboard door stood open, she made a swoop. "Here," she said, "take your old bunny. He'll do to sleep with." And she dragged the rabbit out by one ear and put him in the boy's arms. That night, and for many nights after, the VeLvEtEEn rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first, he found it rather uncomfortable, for the boy hugged him very tight, and sometimes he rolled over on him, and sometimes he pushed him so far under the pillow that Rabbit could scarcely breathe. And he missed, too, those long moonlight hours in the nursery when all was silent in the house, and his talks with the skin horse were about becoming real. But very soon he grew to like it, and the boy used to talk to him and make nice tunnels for him under the bedclothes that he said were like burrows that real rabbits lived in. And they had splendid games together in whispers when Nana had gone away to her supper and left the nightlight burning on the mantelpiece. And when the boy dropped off to sleep, the rabbit would snuggle down close underneath his little arm and his chin and dream, with the boy's hands clasped close around him all night long. And so time went on, and the little rabbit was very, very happy. So happy, he never noticed how beautiful his VeLvEtEEn fur was getting shabbier and shabbier, and his tail coming unsewn, and all the pink rubbed off his nose where the boy had kissed him. Spring came, and they had long days in the garden, for wherever the boy went, the rabbit went too. He had rides in the wheelbarrow, and picnics on grass, and lovely fairy huts built for him under the raspberry canes behind the flower borders. And once, when the boy was called away suddenly to go out to tea, the rabbit was left out on the lawn until long after dark, and Nana had come to go to see where he was, because he could not sleep without him. He was wet through and through with dew, quite earthy from diving in the burrows the boy had made for him in the flower bed. Nana grumbled as she rubbed him off with the corner of her apron. "You must be the old bunny," she said. "Fancy all the fuss for a toy." The boy sat up in the bed and stretched out his hands. "Give me my bunny," he said. "You mustn't say that about him. He isn't a toy. He's real." When the little rabbit heard that, he was happy, for he knew that that was what the skin horse had said was true at last. The nursery magic had happened to him, and he was a toy no longer. He was real. The boy himself, he had said it. The night, he said, was almost too happy to sleep. And so much love stirred in a little sawdust heart that it almost burst. And into the boot-buttoned eyes that long ago lost their polish, there came a look of wisdom and beauty, so that even Nana noticed it next morning when she picked him up and said, "I declare that old Bunny hasn't got quite a knowing expression." That was a wonderful summer. Near the house where they lived there was a wood, and in the long June evenings the boy liked to go there after tea to play. He took the VeLvEtEEn rabbit with him, and before he wandered off to pick flowers or play at the brigades among the trees, he always made the rabbit a little nest somewhere among the bracken, where he would be quite cozy, for he was a kind-hearted little boy, and he liked Bunny to be comfortable. One evening, while the rabbit was laying there all alone, watching the ants that ran to and fro between his velvet paws in the grass, strange things started to creep out of the tall bracken beside him. That was a dreadful question, for the VeLvEtEEn rabbit had no hind legs at all. The back of him was made all in one piece, like a pincushion. He sat in the bracken and hoped that the other rabbits wouldn't notice. "I don't want to," he said again. But then the wild rabbits have very sharp eyes, and this one stretched out his neck and looked. "He hasn't got any hind legs at all," he cried out. "Fancy a rabbit without any hind legs?" And he began to laugh. "I have," cried the little rabbit. "I've got hind legs. I'm sitting on them." "Then stretch them out and let us see. Show them," said the wild rabbits. And he began to whirl around and dance till the little rabbit got quite dizzy. "I don't like dancing," he said. "I'd rather sit still." But all the while he was looking to dance, for a funny new tickling feeling ran through him, and he felt he would give anything in the world to be able to jump up and down like these rabbits did. The strange rabbit stopped dancing and came quite close. He came to see and looked at him, sniffing his long whiskers, brushed the VeLvEtEEn rabbit's ear, and then he wrinkled his nose suddenly, flattened his ears out, and jumped backwards. "He doesn't smell right," he exclaimed. "He isn't a rabbit. He isn't real." "I am real," said the little rabbit. "I am real," the boy said. "I was real," and he really began to cry.